Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ripple podcast. In this episode, we are having a conversation with one of the founding members of the National Freedom Network, Marina Reyneke. This episode does come with some trigger warnings with any of the stuff that we show, any of the extra footage that we show. So we do want to give a warning to that. But why don't you lean in and let's jump into this conversation. Hello, Marina. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
It's so good to
Such
have
a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so good to have you. I'm excited for this conversation, excited for what it is you are going to share with us in terms of what you do. You're making a huge difference, not just in this local community, but South Africa, Joburg, and the world. And so I'm excited for that. But before we get into the conversation, just give a little bit of context of who Marina is, a little bit of your background, and how you came into being part of the National Freedom Network.
So it obviously goes back many, many years.
Yeah.
When I was born. And that was in 1963. My parents separated and divorced when I was 9 years old, and we lived with various people. And straight after school, very exciting, I met my husband, and that was sort of soon after I gave my heart to the Lord.
Yeah.
And we got married 40 years ago.
That's amazing.
And I've been involved in the church ever since, and served in the church in various roles and responsibilities, from many years ago running a soup kitchen, to running women's life groups, helping with women's encounters, mentoring and caring for various communities.
Oh, that's awesome. Share a little bit in terms of how did you find the Freedom Network? How did you get this started?
So it's quite interesting because it was 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I was just exploring after spending many, many years in new creation, serving, running different small ministries, getting involved in Adopt a Block, in Oasis with the children's home. I was involved in Paradigm Shift, and I was just exploring, looking at getting involved in a non-profit in the community. And I came across the topic of human trafficking at the Global Leadership Summit.
Yeah.
And soon after they read Christine Cain's book, Undaunted, which is doing what God calls you to do, just being bold and doing it, undaunted.
Yeah.
And she started the A21 campaign. I think it's about 14 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And my heart just felt perhaps that's the injustice that I could look at in South Africa. I did a lot of research and reading.
Yeah.
And then I came across Diane Wilkinson, who was involved with the National Freedom Network. It was not registered at the time.
Yeah.
And she was looking for an admin assistant.
Yeah.
And I was happy to get involved serving, doing admin.
Yeah.
And that's 10 years ago.
So that's awesome. That's awesome. Talk a little bit about, that moment that for you, what it felt like, what did God do in your heart in terms of, reading this book, coming across this moment of like, hey, this is this is what I think I want to do. You came across, you're at the Global Leadership Summit, and, you're finding out about human trafficking, all the facts are there. What was that moment like in terms of, God doing a work in your heart and kind of encouraging or spurring you on for you to know, hey, this is the area I want to get involved in?
So I think the change that I was looking for in my life was to take a break from the intense caring and discipleship that I'd been doing in the church.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at maybe applying myself more regarding my skills and abilities and giftings related to administration and organization skills, and getting involved on the financial side, the financial accountability. And this was perfect because I needed the break from the emotional drain of counseling people and mentoring people. And of course, none of that goes away. So initially it was throwing myself in, and I just knew it was God, because it is an injustice. Human trafficking is exploitation of human beings for financial gain. And the injustice, the atrocities, it's a heinous crime. And obviously caring for women in Windsor East, you're coming across different situations, and one of the situations that I'd come across was a lady who was involved in the system of prostitution. And she was looking at getting out of it. She'd fallen pregnant. She wanted an abortion. And she was seeking advice from me. And I just felt that I needed to serve in a non-profit that was addressing a crime in South Africa that was really a little bit unknown. People weren't knowledgeable about it. They were not learning about it. And so soon after I actually joined, I created a website with resources. So the South African Counter Human Trafficking Resources Library is a website that people can go to learn about human trafficking. And I just started sharing about human trafficking, talking about it, engaging with people, and really just finding organizations and individuals around the country that were fighting the fight against human trafficking. And, we started with having literally a handful of organizations to now there are well over 100 to 150 organizations and even more individuals connected within the network. So I think it was, I felt God calling me to use my administration skills and abilities. And we are called to use our giftings. And that is one of my giftings. Many know that. And, I would say one of my other giftings is caring for people and loving others, because I'm very passionate about helping others. And now I work with survivors, so I do the admin and the accounts, but then I also care and love.
Sure, that's amazing. In saying that, I think it's sparked a question for me that just goes a little bit back into just your upbringing and growing up and this heart for caring. Is this something that now looking back you can kind of see the start of it, or is it something that you feel is just part of who you are? It's just Marina was always caring, or can you look back and go, maybe there was something in my life that happened that's caused me to be a person who is very caring and wanting to help people?
So I cannot do this without God,
Yeah.
for starters. So I give him the honor and glory for what he's done in my life.
Yeah.
But growing up, because my parents separated and divorced, and we lived with different people, my sister and I, and it wasn't family members. Often, even in your culture,
Yeah.
you know, granny would be looking after the
Yes,
sibling, you know, the other
Yeah.
children, if the parents can't.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I went to boarding school. And because of, let's say, the lack of love
Yeah.
that a child expects from a parent or parents, I became very independent.
Yeah.
And I think when I became a Christian, I probably said to myself, you know, if I'm going to have children, then I want to bring them up with loving them and caring for them. And I think that my heart for, I wanted to be a mom. And I think in the church, I wanted to be a mom more than, what do you call it?
Spiritual mom.
I wanted to raise children of my own.
Yes.
But I also wanted to be a spiritual mom, as you say, spiritual mom. And I've done that, you know, and it's just, I think, the love of God.
Yeah.
And I want to say, you know, the love of God, the mercy of God, the forgiveness of God, it becomes a part of you.
Yeah.
And you don't become the super person that now can love and care and forgive people and extend mercy.
Yeah.
It's actually the overflow of God's love that's extended to us, and God's forgiveness and God's mercy and grace that one really then overflows and can share that with others. And I think I wanted people to know about the love of God, especially if they did not have a loving father and a loving mother that I didn't have.
Sure. No, that's amazing. That's beautiful. Going into your involvement in the National Freedom Network, before just your involvement, you know, for those that are unaware of human trafficking, you alluded to, you know, people weren't educated about this topic, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was this fresh anomaly. You know, there was the wording around modern day slavery. What is the National Freedom Network, and what is the work that you guys do? You know, for people who, you know, just don't know or haven't heard, you know, unaware of the atrocity of human trafficking.
So you alluded to modern day slavery and human trafficking. So we're trying to teach the public that human trafficking in South Africa, we call it trafficking in persons. And so there is this heinous crime.
Yeah.
Okay. And to address it, there are so many people involved. And to try and gather people together to work together is something that the National Freedom Network really works hard at.
Yeah.
So networking is a key part of what we do.
Yeah.
So our aim is to empower people, educate, encourage, and we do that through a network of communication, collaboration, and communication.
Yeah.
So we support, we serve. I think right in the beginning, our heart was really just to serve people and get people together to work together, and that's within and across civil society and government.
Yeah.
So we have relationship with government. We sit on the National Intersectoral Committee for Trafficking in Persons.
Yeah.
And I talked to you beforehand about Jason, who came on board, and Jason's been really very teachable, and I've been able to mentor him into his role as a relationships manager, and he actually attends all those meetings with government and has really built amazing relationships with them.
Yeah.
Because the government is mandated to really address the situation from implementing the Act.
Yeah.
So we have a Prevention and Combating of Trafficking in Persons Act in South Africa, which was implemented 2016. And, now it needs to be actually taken seriously.
Yeah.
And the roles and responsibilities of all parties are very important.
Yeah.
And so the National Freedom Network works with anyone in the counter-human trafficking field.
Yeah.
So from a lay person who's just picked up a book
Yeah.
and read about human trafficking, right through to academia.
Yeah.
And we work with people who do training. We try and mobilize and encourage, especially collaboration. So if there's organizations that are doing similar things around the country, to share resources, to share human resources, obviously training material, webinar material, or presentations for raising awareness.
Yeah.
If they've got contacts in schools, to share contacts like that, or if they have connections within the different departments, like the Department of Education or the Department of Health. We try and motivate people to share information so that everyone can have access and work together.
Yeah. We've had a conversation before this, and something that was very interesting that you mentioned, we understand the crime of trafficking persons, trafficking people, funny but not funny. I think most people's only understanding of human trafficking is probably Liam Neeson's movie, and it's been put in this kind of Hollywood light, someone's out to rescue you. But you mentioned something in our conversation a while back about there's a lot of non-profit organizations that are rescuing, but there was something that was unique that you mentioned that you guys are doing in terms of what is that process after they've been rescued. And I asked the question of how many of these women, have been trafficked, been rescued, and actually how many of them are back in these situations because there hasn't been this process of actually reintegrating them and into society again. And rescue is the forefront of what needs to happen. But where do they go from that afterwards?
So you talked about Liam Neeson's movie, Taken. And then you've got The Sound of Freedom that's out recently. And I'm so encouraged to see some churches are actually having it screened in their churches to raise awareness. Because actually the topic or the issue, for instance, in these movies is the victim.
Yeah.
So Sound of Freedom is about child trafficking.
Yeah.
And actually it's not about who's doing what. It's actually about that child who was vulnerable and, yes, taken.
Yeah.
We don't want to say kidnapped because kidnapped might not be trafficking.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned kidnapping can just be for a ransom.
Yeah.
Or kidnapping a child because the parents are getting divorced and having a fight. So we talk more about abduction.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always happen by strangers. It can happen by family members. It's very sad. The children can actually know the perpetrator. The young woman can know the perpetrator.
Yeah.
And yes, I also just want to add that, I think South Africa is a little bit behind in the whole process of helping survivors.
Yeah.
We don't know of a lot of survivors in South Africa. I know recently there are one or two ladies who are obviously feeling now they can speak up and out and perhaps address what happened to them. They've maybe dealt with it and now are ready to speak out and to expose the perpetrators.
Yeah.
Because it's actually the perpetrators, the traffickers, that get away with it.
Yeah.
And also you hear of the lady or ladies or the young boys or the men being rescued, but you don't often hear about the arrest of the perpetrator.
Yeah. Yeah.
or the trafficker
Yeah.
or the farm owner
Yeah.
or the boss,
Yeah.
of the whole situation.
Yeah.
So, the ladies come out of a trafficking situation, probably sex trafficking, perhaps exiting the system of prostitution, maybe go into a shelter or a safe house
Yeah.
and are protected and receive medical assistance, maybe some counseling, psychology appointments,
Yeah.
maybe seeing a psychiatrist. It's painful to actually even think about it now,
Yeah.
of the trauma that they go through. But they progress and grow. It might take 3 months, 6 months. It could actually take 2 years. Perhaps they've been dependent on drugs. So there's also that detoxing process.
Yeah.
And that can also take a long time to get out of your system, because it needs to get out of your mind,
Yeah.
not only your physical being.
Yeah.
And, as they journey, there needs to be a process where they maybe have skills development. I remember one lady said she doesn't want to learn how to knit squares or crochet or sew.
Yeah.
She wants an education.
Yeah.
She wants to go to university.
Yeah.
And she'd finished matric, so she could do that.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful to see that.
Yeah.
But maybe others need skills development. Maybe they need to become a nail technician and be employed,
Yeah.
or open their own little business.
Yeah.
But with all that, they need support and encouragement and mentoring or coaching
Yeah.
to do that. And that's something that we started looking at. So I've known Peter, Ann, and Grant Small through Liberty Church for many years.
Yeah.
In fact, it was 10 years ago that they relocated to Bulgaria, and they opened a safe house there for survivors of trafficking. And they've been to South Africa and back to Bulgaria. They're still very involved in Liberty Church. And a couple of months ago, Peter Ann was talking about putting together a program for survivors of human trafficking. And so we came up with a VST empowerment program.
Yeah.
And VST means victim, survivor, thriver. And so the idea was to work with a group of ladies and help them to move away from the victim mentality.
Sure. That's
because
amazing.
they're actually survivors. They have
Yeah.
survived it.
Yeah.
And then work towards them being thrivers
Yeah.
from what they've experienced.
Yeah.
And so Peter Ann put together material, and I had a look at it, and she also brought in the South African context. So she was talking a lot about Ubuntu
Yeah.
and doing things together. And so we gathered 13 survivors, one from Cape Town, one from the Free State, one from Mpumalanga, and the rest were from Gauteng.
Yeah.
And we did online sessions with them, which was awesome,
Yeah.
because looking at their faces on the screen is just incredible.
Yeah.
And for us, the exciting part was that they were meeting one another.
Yeah.
So they were coming across others who have been through the same thing.
Yeah.
Most of them did not know each other.
Yeah.
And it was just so exciting.
Yeah.
You know, each of them are on a different stage of their journey of healing and restoration.
Yeah.
Some are maybe reintegrated into society with running a non-profit, and now also working with survivors, for instance, in Cape Town.
Yeah.
So we also concluded the program with a 2.5 day workshop, and we had various people in Gauteng presenting at the workshop on different topics.
Yeah.
So we had Glynis speaking on the importance of your relationship with God and the way forward, and, you know, really believing and trusting God.
Yeah.
We had Sharon speaking on self-defense,
Yeah.
but it was more than just self-defense. It was about self-care,
Yeah.
being able to protect yourself
Yeah.
and not being vulnerable,
Yeah.
which is so key to understanding
Yeah.
the importance of protecting yourself.
Yeah.
And so she also, you know, shared a few moves with us.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But for the in-person workshop, it
Yeah.
was really incredible to watch the women building relationship,
Yeah.
and also being able to share their experiences, their opinions,
Yeah.
their feelings, and not being held back,
Yeah.
you know, and not feeling that they're not being heard. So we encourage them to share their frustrations, their limitations, their difficulties, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And, you know, the success of this workshop will only be as we continue engaging with them and doing further sessions with them to encourage them in their journey.
Yeah.
For instance, 2 of the ladies are studying, so they were open and said to us, look, we can't meet in November because we're studying and writing exams.
Yeah.
And, you know, that just pulls at my heart because
Yeah.
they're actually doing something about their futures.
Yeah.
They're not just
Staying in that victim space.
yes,
of like, you know,
and being
yeah.
dependent, because
Yeah.
when they finish doing their studies, we're gonna motivate for companies to take them on.
Yeah.
And the companies don't need to know their past.
Yeah.
Depending on what type of relationship we have with different companies,
Yeah.
we can share information with them, and
Yeah.
we can get them to have a project where they decide to include, you know, survivors of human trafficking as part of their programs.
Yeah.
And helping them in their journey. That is
Yeah.
so key.
Yeah.
And teaching them also to give back
Yeah.
is very important.
Yeah.
But it's hard work, Phil. It's really hard work.
Yeah.
It's emotionally draining and very demanding on those of us who really have a heart for it, because it's really a soft heart. You need a lot of love. You need a lot of patience and perseverance. You know, I'm not just looking at you and saying, Phil, I understand, you know,
Yeah.
you've been through labor trafficking in that sweatshop.
Yeah.
I know how hard it is. You know, you've told me some of the stuff, but just, you know, just get out of it. Just stop thinking, you know, stop persecuting yourself, you know, stop being a victim, you know, get out of it now. You need to change the way you feel or the way you think.
Yeah.
Or even trying to use Christianese, you know, and I'm very cautious about saying to a survivor, you know, don't you trust God?
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot more for them to journey in that relationship with God to a point where they really do trust God.
Yeah.
So even things like forgiveness, which I taught at the workshop with them, I had to be very careful to say, oh, you've got to forgive your perpetrator.
Yeah.
Because I believe that they will.
Yeah.
They will. But it's not, it has to be a journey that they're on. And at some point, that step of freedom, of forgiveness will come.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. It's validating everything that they've been through, their experience, their trauma. It's validating and not just disregarding it and saying, okay, you know, now that you're out of it, get out of this mindset, move on, you know, because again, and I love this because this is the reason why I ask about people's past, because so often our past plays a role in shaping our future. And so the way we embrace it, we can't disregard everything that's happened. But I think the beauty of validating their feelings, their emotions, their journey, it's a beautiful thing. And it's empowering for them to understand that, the trauma they experience, the journey they're on is very real. And so, yeah, it's an amazing thing that what you guys are doing. And in saying so, is there a story where, your intention is to bring change? Your intention is to care and love and make a difference. But in doing so, meeting one of these survivors, or something, you got involved in a project or something where you've been changed, where you've been impacted.
But one lady, I'd love to just talk about her.
Yeah.
So I can't give you her name.
No, that's perfectly correct. That's fine.
But she's a widow. Her 2 children are teenagers now. And it's been so special for me. And I hope my face shows it. It's been so special because it's really tough.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know in our church, ladies, single moms that struggle.
Yeah.
And here is someone who has been trafficked, and now she's on her own, and she's trying to survive, basically. So she's a survivor, and survivor means she's trying just to survive.
Yeah.
So with no skills, with no qualifications.
Yeah.
And it's just been incredible how she has initiated things.
Yeah.
And I've been able to spend a number of times in person with her. And then she would say she wants to do this course. And then, we've sponsored her to do an online course. And so we particularly helped her through COVID with her basic needs.
Yeah.
And basic needs is food.
Yeah.
Not internet access like you and I have. Like we just need Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
It's food, it's transport for the children for school, it's school fees, it's electricity.
Yeah.
It's rent. And she's always been so accountable, especially when we give her money. She always sends us receipts.
Yeah.
A photograph of buying electricity, or the food receipts or clothing receipts.
Yeah.
And so she's completed an au pair course and a caring for elderly.
Yeah.
And more recently, she got her driver's license, which we assisted her with. She did a number of lessons. So now she has her driver's license. And I've been able to go to her graduation ceremonies after she did the one course, which makes it very special. It's like a mom looking after her daughter.
Yeah.
And she is so appreciative.
Yeah.
And now she's able to, and hopefully will, get a job as an au pair, and she can say yes, she's got a driver's license.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Part of the process is to have these skills and abilities which you and I take advantage of. Take
for granted.
Take for granted.
Yeah.
We take it for granted. I can drive, and I have a car. But being an au pair, normally the family have an extra car that she would use to take the kids to school and take them to other activities.
Yeah.
So, I really have seen tremendous growth in her, and she's very teachable.
Yeah.
So if I've encouraged her numerous times to do this, do that, try this, get help from this person. So she's not totally dependent on us.
Sure.
So and it's a story of persevering and being patient and not getting frustrated, not getting frustrated, because it's easy when you're watching someone and you're hoping they would do this or do that.
Yeah.
And you've got to help them to get that boldness to take the initiative, to do things, to try things.
Yeah.
And when they do have a job, to persevere in that job
Yeah.
despite what happens.
Yeah.
You know, when the boss shouts or the boss complains, not to then want to resign straight away, or, you know, have that victim mentality and say, oh, what's wrong with me? You know,
Yeah.
I've done something wrong. I'm
Yeah.
obviously not good enough.
Yeah.
Which is often the case.
Yeah.
And I know from my own experience, I do that.
Yeah.
You know, we often think we're not good enough, but
Yeah.
then we get reminded of the truth of the Word of God.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you for sharing with us, and just imparting a lot of the care and love and education and insight of what you guys are doing at the National Freedom Network. And we trust that people are encouraged with what you've shared, and hopefully there are people who will make a difference and step into making an impact, whether it's with your organization or whether it's starting their own organization or getting involved somewhere. But we're encouraged, and thank you for sharing your story.
It's a pleasure.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.